colleagues and friends here with us today to take part in what promises to be a very interesting and rich conversation entitled Voice, Instrument, and Cultural Difference, Musical Practice as Research. I am Angeline De Dios. I am currently Assistant Professor at the Department of Cultural Studies here at Lingnan, and I'm also the coordinator of the Cultures of Sound and Music cluster of the Center for Cultural Research and Development, which is kind of like the research and outreach arm of the Department of Cultural Studies. We have different clusters each of which are committed to creating conversations, events, forums, and projects around themes of interest and of purpose for the Department of Cultural Studies and our many colleagues. And today, one of our enduring interests in the cluster for sound and music is really the ways in which our practice informs our research and how our research informs our practice. So this is quite a natural ongoing conversation that we already have. And today we're bringing together 4 friends from different institutions in Hong Kong, but also of different traditions and creative and scholarly trajectories to share with us their thoughts on this notion of practice and research in and through musical education and performance and recording. So without further ado, we'll begin with our first speaker, who is no stranger to many of us, Professor Siu Wah, who is currently adjunct professor at almost every single university in Hong Kong that has a commitment to music and history somehow. So he is a beloved and well-respected name in the field of music history studies in and from Hong Kong. He has a specialty in Cantonese opera and vernacular forms of cultural production through vocal music. So may I request Holly's help in just bringing up the slides? Thank you for joining us, Professor Siu Wah. Can you hear us fine and see?
Yeah, thank you for your very nice introduction. Thank you. I just want to say hi to everybody. John Winsenberg, Kim Ho, Teju, and of course you. And Holly, thanks for your assistance. My topic is performance practice as compositional process, the case of Hong Kong Cantonese narrative singing. This is not a paper. I'm not going to read the paper, but I just want to share with you my thoughts and observations through my participations in the Hong Kong Cantonese narrative singing Naamyam activities from, I think, since 2 decades ago. So this would not be technical, but I think I do have some points to share. So this PowerPoint is a little bit, very basic, okay? It's a brief context and history. Cantonese Nanyin, or called Naamyam, it has been popular at least since mid-19th century in Hong Kong and in China, of course, and in Canton and Macau. It is mostly sung by blind musicians. That is its original context. And it is some kind of storytelling and narrative music of epic length. One story can go on for weeks or for months. And in the original historical context, it's basically a very popular genre in brothels, restaurants, tea house, and opium dance. So you can imagine the original context or the old historical context of Nanyin. It was popular music at the same time because in Hong Kong, it has been broadcast daily in HK commercial radio until the early 1970s. So it was just a few, maybe half a century ago, we still heard Nanyin singing, broadcasting from the radio. And then, of course, when all these blind musicians passed away and their profession is no longer sustainable because of the social changes. So it didn't survive as storytelling or narrative music, but the music itself of Nanyin survived within Cantonese opera as one of its many music repertoires. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is a photo done by a very famous ethnomusicologist from the US, I think he's still around. Robert Gafias, he himself is a Japanese, is a expert on Japanese music. And then when he was in Hong Kong in the 1960s, he took these very rare photos and precious photo of the blind Naamyam master, Du Huan of Hong Kong, Do Wun. Mostly, of course, they are blind and they cannot move around too independently. So when they go to work or basically going out to the street to sing, they will be led by some younger people. For example, this boy to where he would like to perform. So next slide, the photo. Okay, this is when he was much older, the same person, and he became a big name in Hong Kong. Now, of course, he's no longer surviving. Now, this is a reconstruction of the context in the tea house. Professor Bell Yung, we invited him to a tea house, very old-fashioned one, to reconstruct the performance context. And he recorded basically 40 hours of his recordings. Now look at this. He himself is the accompanist of his own singing, and he is using his left hand to play the clappers, providing the rhythm, and on his right hand he's playing the guzheng, the bridge scissor. So he himself is doing some kind of three things together at the same time. This is wonderful. So next one. Now just a few main points. The music of Nanying or Namyam is highly formulaic. Without this kind of formula, it won't work for most of the musicians and the singers. And it's highly repetitive. It's some kind of Cantonese minimal music. So it's keep going on more or less the same phrase. For example, as an accompanist, I just played, if I can play two phrases like di da di da da di da da, or da 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 di da 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 di da, these two phrases, I can go through the whole performance of Nanying. Of course, I have to change a little bit, but this is basically the two responding instrumental phrase for the singer. And it usually was performed by one or two persons because they don't, blind singers cannot afford to have a big group to accompany him. So it's always at most 5 to 6 accompanies is already very luxurious. And in most cases, as you have seen from the photo, they self-accompany their own singing. But we always think that this is very free, improvisatory. Yes, it is relatively free, but not totally free. If it is totally free, it won't work. So it is improvisatory to a great extent, but musical design and arrangement are more frequent in recent years. So it really depends. If it is a recorded performance for commercial use, I think most of the arrangers or the singers will kind of arrange the piece to have a much better or more convincing format. But in most cases, when the blind singers perform on their own, there's just no sort or limit or regulation. They can do whatever they like because he is the only accompanist. But if there's another one, they have to have some agreement before the performance, of course. And what is significant or unique is there's no music notation concerned. So the lyrics or the text, the sung text, is served as some kind of notation. Now, the next, please, next slide. Just want to show you. Yes, this is the text or lyrics of a commercial recordings of Nanying. And you can see that they are all Chinese characters. This is already more than enough because in addition to the lyrics, on the right-hand side, there are some cross, some dots, which are rhythmic indication. But in most cases, when I play Nanying with other players, they basically just give me the text and that's it. There's nothing. Okay, so the next one. Now, I think we don't have much time to go into the details, but I would like you to have a feel of it. I have 3 clips, 2 are video clips, and the last one is the audio clips. And this one is, I think, is a performance I did, say, 10 years ago with an old lady who was in her mid-80s. So this is basically a lament or some kind of a song mourning for CUHK. CUHK is the beloved lady. Of course, she's a prostitute. So most of the stories or the contents of Nanying is around the life and love affairs among the prostitutes and their clients. And most of the two examples I'm going to cite from different pieces are both supposed to be sung by a man mourning his already passed away lover. So please look at this. I marked it with red, meaning that the first two lines is not sung. It's basically dialogue, or not dialogue. It's a spoken line, but with the music behind it. Okay, and then I don't want to read the lyrics. So if you can have this, then I just give you 1 minute to digest this. Then, Holly, would you please play the first clips? Thank you, Holly. That's enough. Okay, very good. This is not a natural or normal kind of performance, because this lady, she is in her mid-80s, and she got such a chance, opportunity to perform her young art. She entered the singing profession when she was 7 in Macau. So she was very keen on making her, she was a professional musician, doing a lot of accompaniment for Nanying and Cantonese opera. So she has a lot of music experience, and her singing is much more refined than the general kind of Namyam singing. So this is the kind of later development in the beginning of 21st century. Okay, we'll go to the second clip, and the second slide first, and please read my translation of the second slide. Yes, from the same piece. Now, what I would like to make, the point I would like to make is, after say 5 to 7 minutes, she was still singing in the same mode, okay? Even though burning all the gold and silver, they could not reach you in the underworld. And suddenly, this modal change happened afterwards. So when she turns into a different content, and she was basically lamenting the poor and very unhappy, unfortunate life of his beloved. So he changed the mode. I'm not going to into the so-called modal differences, but anyway, you can hear it. It's very different. So from the first two, and then you will see, you will hear the modal change here, and the change is immediate without any preparation. But what the musicians do is just to follow her. And this is not really indicated in the text, okay? So please, Holly, please play the second clip. And I will point out to you when the modal change happens. Not yet. I didn't see it. Have you started playing the second clip? Yes. Okay.
仲有銀
The same mode of the previous section.
都帶不落去音啊！思可惜離飄
Here, modal
過
change happened.
在青瓦樓，辜負你一世咯。你在煙花牆上啊，你都無日不開呀眉啊！
Thank you very much. Please go back to the PowerPoint. What I would like to make is this particular technique or modal change in Naamyam is basically the most frequent musical changes in the whole genre. So it's not much. Of course, there are some particular melody they will use for a certain point, climactic point, but basically the two modes are kind of interchangeable. And if you can listen to our responding to her, is that before the change of mode, we use di-da-di-da-da-di-da-da. But when she changes, of course, we heard it, and when we follow, we use da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just that simple. So it's not that difficult to follow, okay? Now, this is a very unique example because after this performance, her performance is no longer recorded as a commercial recording. So this is the only available videotapes online, which is very precious because she passed away, I think, after she got her honorary doctorate from Lingnan in early 2014 or 13. Okay, so the last example I would like to share with you without any video is just a recent rehearsal. It was my first time responding to a new piece which I have to learn, and later we have a lot of more rehearsals, and then we performed it or made the recordings for LCSD. But this one, okay, this is more or less the same thing. Burning sacrifice to his beloved. Again, what I will show is because you don't have to pay attention to the video, then you better listen more. And this is more lively, not so long, so slow, and not so so-called calm. Because at this point, you read from my translation, meaning that the protagonist is hiring a boat to mourn his beloved, and then after he reached a certain point, and he also recall what they have shared before, but then suddenly modal change here. Okay, see the red indication. Then when he mentions the sacrifice of banknotes, And then I could not help to shed tears. And then with these 3 cups of mild wine, I'm going to mourn the lonely soul of yours. So again, when she changed the mood of his narration, then he also, this is a man, okay, a very young person. He is in his early 30s, okay, a very successful and professional Naamyam singer. But basically, he is a full-time Cantonese opera singer, actor. But at the same time, he performs quite a lot on Naamyam. So please play the last example I have, and then I will conclude very quickly. Just a few more slides, and I will conclude. Please play the audio file. Change. Great, thank you very much. So I have finished sharing with you my 3 examples. Now, please, the next come to the next slide. Then I will quickly conclude what I would like to make. Okay, just a few, highlighting on what is the mainstream practice in the West. So composers or arrangers. So basically in the West, you need the composer, or at least you have the arranger to do all the music arrangements, and then the score writing and put into the parts. And musicians, professional ones, are supposed to be very good at sight reading. And you have rehearsal, but during the rehearsal, everything is already fixed. Concerts are essential, okay? Aspects of music, this is the common practice nowadays, even in Hong Kong, a lot of people do music making in this way. And the musicians play music according to what is notated. So without a notation, they won't do anything because there's no instruction, right? And the music performed on stage are basically finished products, strictly according to the score. And the conductor, the musicians, and the pianist, all of them have to read carefully and accurately from the music notation, right? Of course, there are some improvisation in jazz and narrative singing, such as country western. It does happen, but that's not exactly the mainstream. Of course, these are folk, folk music. So this is, in general, how the Western tradition practiced the music making and composition. That's why composition and composers are very important, okay? The next slide, please. Yes. In Cantonese Nanying singing, it is a singers-oriented practice. And the singers will do the modal, tempo, rhythmic, and formal changes on the spot during his or her performances. And even during the recordings, I remember, I got the lyrics, meaning the notation. There are some instructions of when to change the mode, but during the recording session, the singer did not do it according to what is being written. Then all the musicians just listened to him, and then we responded in the appropriate way musically. So this is the general practice. And the lyrics are as notation to be read by musicians. So for the musician, they also have to read the lyrics, not to create music, but this is some kind of guidelines or the map for his accompaniments, where to go and when to stop. Then, the third one is very important. Music making and music rehearsing is a process of composition. So the more you rehearse, the music gets more and more so-called sophisticated or more fluent. And then things could be added, things could be deleted. everything happens, okay? So improvisation relies on the common practice shared among musicians. So if you don't know the tradition, you can't join the music making, right? So I think my experience is even before I know the art of accompanying Nanying, I heard a lot of Nanying, so that when I joined it, I can kind of survive or doing all right without intruding or disturbing the singers, and that's good enough. If you don't know it, you just stop. Okay, that's not a problem. There's not so-called correct or wrong way of doing it. Anything goes. But what is better and what is bad, I think people will know. The singers will know, and the audience will know. So the instrumentalist, that is my own experience, always respond to the singer's musical change on the spot. The overall impression is repetitive and formulaic. However, the changes or the kind of nuances in music making is more than we thought. Of course, if you don't really do a good job, it could be very boring. It could be very repetitive because you have all these formulas. But if the singer is doing a good job, a decent job, then it won't be boring. Of course, the singer has to be a good one, okay? But things could be very different and creative under different singers and instrumentalists. So from what is composing for the Nanying is to compose or write out the lyrics. That is their composing. It's not to write out the melodies or rhythm. No, nothing like that. So it's from composing the lyrics to realizing the piece of music in the music. It is through rehearsals and performance to shape and define the piece. So there's no final so-called version. It can, as long as there are new performance, it could be different. Okay, even by the same singers. Of course, if it's sung by different singers, it could be very different. But even by the same singers, he or she will change every time he or she perform. So performance is more important than composition in the Western sense in this context. So the piece has never ceased to evolve as long as there are new performance of the same piece. So maybe next, maybe the last one, I don't know. Last slide, please. Okay, this is my last slide. So I think what I have experienced and participated in the last 2 decades, it came to my mind that this is something like intercultural differences in music making. And due to what I have described, the traditional performance practice and aesthetics, Namyam has its own system, which is I am very clear. Because the system is clear for those who are practitioners, not to the audience. Even the audience are not that sensitive about it. They don't even have to know about the system and convention. These are well understood among practitioners, but these have seldom been spelled out. Then concepts and compositional practice are quite fundamentally different from that of the West, as well as from other Chinese music genres, because some other Chinese music genres could be rather close to the Western practice of having a arranger play according to the notation. This day particularly, when you go to the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra, they are even using staff notation, and the conductor is very demanding on the accurate reading of the music. Okay, the above observations shed new lights on our understanding of the concepts of composition. What is a piece of work? What is a composer? As they have been taken for granted. And that's it, my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.